All right, so I was sitting in math class and I just had this little realization. Sometimes I find parallels between things. So it's a pre-calculus class. So review of all the math topics covered in high school, short of calculus. So pre-calculus, yeah. And the teacher often uses these little tricks, like algebra tricks, right, which are really cool. And I realized like I was starting to pick up some of his tricks by doing the homework. And it's like building a repertoire of these tricks, right? And then often when you're factoring things or something, he knows what trick to use or like what avenue to follow to get the kind of the desired next line in solving the equation or whatever it is, right? Whereas me having a limited repertoire or not having a complete grasp of the repertoire yet, I would have to play around, try different possibilities, and then maybe get to the right next line that gets me closer to the solution, right? And I realized this kind of repertoire building, right? This repertoire of tricks that you can use in algebra or in pre-calculus. There's a parallel to the tricks that I'm learning in dance, right? Because I've also been taking dance classes, and there also we're basically building a repertoire of steps to use, like whether it's different turns, different things like the what is it, the hand brush or head brush or hair brush, these little moves, a repertoire of these moves, these steps. And then last class was actually the last class of my bachata class for the beginner series, and they left us to ourselves as almost like a social dance practice. And there we had to draw from the repertoire of steps that we'd built in that freestyle session, right? And then that was actually really tricky because for the first time I was kind of left on my own there, and I had to decide like what in the moment. I had to realize like, okay, what steps do I actually have in my repertoire that I can pull off at any given moment in the dance, right? But that was a neat little parallel of repertoire building. And so I've realized like there's such a utility in mastering something, just one thing, to a sufficient level early in your life, whatever that is, even if it's tiddlywinks or crosswords or Sudoku, like whatever it is. For me, it was chess, right? And I've run into examples like a world-class poker player who then transitioned into business, right? Or even chess players who transitioned into business or whatever it is that comes next. Or Josh Waitzkin, he transitioned from becoming from an international master in chess, which he became when he was early as a kid, and then he went and became a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then he also became, I think, a world champion or something in pushing hands. I think it's a Tai Chi technique. So getting sufficiently far in one domain early in your life gives you the vocabulary to then make progress in other domains later in life. So for example, this idea of repertoire building in chess, that's also what you're doing. You're repertoire building, whether it's opening moves, it's theoretical endgames, it's middle game strategy, like there are like good bishop versus bad bishop, like there's these repertoire of ideas, steps, things like that. And when you build up that repertoire, then when you're in a game, you can perform. You draw on that repertoire, right? So then there's a parallel with that in dance. You're also building your repertoire in math with algebra, all these tricks that the teacher is using. There's a repertoire there. And that's just one example of how that kind of vocabulary from your first expertise translates into mastery in other domains of your life. Another example of such vocabulary is this idea that under stress, you go more for pattern recognition. And then when there's less stress, your brain snaps out of pattern recognition and can engage in more deliberation, right? And studies show this, like with rats or whatever it is, even with humans, that under stress, humans use a different kind of learning. It's like in the hippocampus, like in the brain regions where it happens, the kind of learning that happens. And I can't remember all the terms for it now because I haven't read that sort of literature in a long time. So I'm rusty on that vocab, but that terminology. But I remember that lesson. So for example, me myself, I've noticed I'm very good in pattern recognition, like amazing, right? But when it comes to thoughtful deliberation, like problem solving, when it's not under stress, I'm very weak. Not that it cannot be worked on, but I just realized this myself. For example, if somebody shows me dance steps, or when I used to take boxing classes, shows me a boxing sequence or whatever, I can get that down faster than anybody. Like that kind of just straight up mirror neuron. Like just you show me something and I pick up the steps, because my sense of rhythm and everything it's higher than almost anybody. So I can pick up these patterns, these steps very fast. So under stress, I can be very good in just performing patterns, right? So when I'm working in the field as a millwright, I noticed that I pick up these patterns really well, like different patterns or tried and true methods for, let's say, removing bolts or removing a gearbox, removing bearings. When I see people doing these things, I pick up these things and I remember them. So for example, removing a gearbox, I can use a jack behind it. I know you're not supposed to, but just different techniques like that, right? For example, one time they were trying to remove really big bolts from a machine. These big bolts were like absolutely stuck. So the guy used a torch to cut into one side of the head, and then we used a chisel and a hammer to turn them, which was pretty cool, right? But as a millwright, like, it used to frustrate me because mastery feels so good, but as a millwright, you're it's like mastery is so far, because how many things do you have to master? You're basically a jack of all trades. Whereas if I was a car mechanic or something, or an electrician, whatever, mastery would be more in my reach, because you're at least limiting your domain of expertise, right? But as a millwright, you're never really mastering any one thing completely, because every day you're just dealing with new shit. All you're really doing there is building the repertoire, so that you might encounter a rusty bolt here in one machine, and you might encounter a rusty bolt in another machine, and maybe you can use the same methods, like that method that I just described of turning a bolt with a chisel by cutting into it first. Or like today I was installing door hinges, and the old screws wouldn't come out. They were completely stuck in the door. So I Googled it, and then I ended up cutting into them with an angle grinder to turn it from a Phillips head into a flathead, so that I can use a flathead screwdriver on it, right? So these little techniques, this repertoire, I'm building that repertoire of techniques, and then it's a different kind of mastery. It's still frustrating because you're always troubleshooting new things, just into stressful situations where you don't know what the fuck's going on. But at least you have a bigger and bigger arsenal, bigger and bigger repertoire of these techniques to use, so you can navigate those new situations, right? But anyway, so for myself, I noticed picking up these techniques, I'm pretty good at it, but the deliberation I'm not as good at. But this also has a parallel in what I was doing in chess, because I realized in chess, if it was like a short time control, I was really good at it, because I could memorize patterns really easily. But when it came to a really long game with fresh problem solving that required fresh eyes, where you didn't want to fall into functional fixedness, then I had trouble. And I mean, this video, you guys, there's no way you can follow it, because I'm just kind of rambling, trying to get my own thoughts in order. But so functional fixedness is like when you start thinking of things as if they only have one function, because you've seen them used in that one way a lot. So there's a famous study where in order to get out of a room, people had to think of a candle box as a platform rather than as a container, but they couldn't do it because anytime they had seen the candle box was always as a container for a candle. So I realized that with myself. So like whether it was in chess, then later on it was in millwrighting, I would just blindly engage in patterns and not sit back and think, okay, what is actually going on here? I was very quick to fall into functional fixedness. So one time there was this long ass screw, very, very heavy, like maybe a ton, multiple tons, I don't know, but yeah, probably a ton or something, in an extruder. So it's a very long screw. We're talking like I don't know, like 10 like multiple meters, like maybe 6 meters or something. Very heavy screw, and we were pulling it out with a forklift, and I was just pulling on it blindly with this other apprentice, and then somebody came by and said, or maybe we just realized after a while, that holy fuck, this thing has a key in there, right? And I never stopped to think, if the screw is turning, there must be some kind of mechanism there to transfer the torque onto the screw. So there has to be a key. So if we're pulling this thing out or pushing it back in, whatever we were doing, we have to realize there's a key in there, right? But I was just, I went into the pattern like, okay, if I have to move this thing out, let's pull on it, let's yank it out. And then I think, okay, what is the actual function here? What is going on here? So anyways, this is just one more example of, I'm just talking for my own sake to clarify my thoughts, of these parallels. Like you realize something about yourself in one domain, for me it was chess, and then you realize, okay, this same kind of thinking I use in other domains, like in my mill writing, right? So there's these parallels. And so to connect it back, it's just, there's such a utility in having gone far enough in one domain early in life that you can make these parallels when you take on new domains. So now, so like when I started in chess, then I went into mill writing, my current trade, all these parallels there. Then I went into dance, right? Dance class. I realized there's mastering dance. There's also all these parallels, and I could keep riffing on this shit. I could think of so many others, but I won't in this video. And then going into math now, like math is also, yeah. And about these tricks that the math teacher was using, you know. On the one hand, this guy's a garbage teacher. Absolutely terrible. Normally I would have given up because growing up, that's what I was taught. That was the example that was set for me, is that anytime you have trouble in school, it's the teacher's fault. So you just don't, it's okay if you don't do your homework, it's the teacher's fault. Just go fuck off. It's okay to fail, whatever, it's okay to not try. That was basically me all throughout school. That's why I failed everything, right? All throughout high school, or like barely passed 50% and never did any homework and shit, right? But this math class was a real eye-opener, where despite failing, I'm actually attaining such amazing success in my own eyes that it really preps me to do really well on the next math course I take. Because initially I wasn't doing the homework, and I just kept blaming the teacher, and it made it very hard to learn the material, because throughout the math class I'd be sitting there just hating the teacher, wanting to kill the fucking teacher, you know, like, why? He's getting paid for this. Why is he doing such a shit job of teaching? Who hired this guy? And guys like him are the reason why people like me don't make it in maths. That was my thinking, my whole headspace for the first many classes. But then I started doing the homework. And even this was not easy, because I don't really have much time in the day for homework. So I had to implement a new habit of waking up 1 hour early every day before work to do the math homework. Now, to be honest, I haven't been able to pull off 1 whole hour yet. But most days I've been able to pull off doing 30 minutes every morning. And even just doing this, man, because I realized after doing the homework that by doing the rote learning, these tricks that the teacher is doing, I started seeing them so often that now when I go into the lecture, I can actually follow along what he's doing. And yes, on the one hand, the onus should be on him to explain what he's doing, and he does a non-existent job of that. But on the other hand, by doing the homework, I get past his stupidity, and I can actually still make use of his lectures, and I benefit so much. And now I'm happy that he's using these tricks all the time, because by seeing them done, now they're in my repertoire, right? So that was just an interesting little success, right? Like, despite failing the class, now I'm actually doing better and better. Like today, whatever he was doing in class, in the lectures, like the big word problems that used to completely just stump me and make me cry in school, I was actually figuring out how to set up those equations even before the teacher explained them. Like, because I did the homework, right? And I look forward to getting better at this, because I've only been doing half an hour of homework, and not even every day. Like today I fell asleep and I wasn't able to get up, but most days I've been waking up at least half an hour early enough to do the homework. And I want to see how much I can push this. Like, I want to make it the whole hour. I want to give myself a full hour every morning, and I want to do it every morning without exception, non-negotiable. And then on top of that, I realized the homework is one part, but then I also need to review the lectures. Like, the few times I was doing that, like going back over his lecture notes, so I can give myself an extra hour before every class, like twice a week, just to review the last lecture notes, right? Because I did that a few times, and that helped me tremendously. So basically, this time in my life, I'm really optimizing a lot of things. There are a lot of other things I've been optimizing as well that I won't talk about here, but that's one example. Like, like my way of eating, I've really, really optimized my way of eating. So I expect to see weight loss happen effortlessly over the next little while. Um, another thing is, I won't even talk about the other things, but the math, I mean the homework, like doing well in school, fitting it into my lifestyle, optimizing for that. It's really working out and I'm seeing success. And so even though I've failed this class, but I still go to class, I still do the homework because I'm learning it for myself. And the next math class I take, which starts May 30th, it's going to be run concurrently with this class. So I'll be doing 4 days a week after May 30th. That class, I intend to pass it and maybe even ace it, because I'll actually have a leg up now, because the people in that class, they might be a little bit rusty in math, whereas I'm concurrently, I've been doing this pre-calc class, which goes through all the tricks, all the foundations, the fundamentals, whatever. So I'm fresh, man. Like that shit's in my head fresh right now. So I can kill it in my business math class, which starts May 30th. So I'm really glad I kind of persevered through that failure of failing this class. I'm continuing to persevere through it, and it sets me up for successes in the future. And it really taught me a lot of virtues. And also, yeah, and I've had some other realizations too. I won't talk about all of them, but like I realized winter and summer I can approach differently. Like in the summer, I don't really feel like sitting in school because there's an opportunity cost to it, right? I would much rather be focusing on dance, because like this one dance class finished and I got so much out of it, and the kind of community it gives me, the possibility of making friends and girls, right? So I'll enroll in one more dance class. I'll try if there's space in it for Fridays going forwards. That was bachata, and I want to do kizomba. But it would be much better if in the summer I just focus completely on dance, and then the winter and spring semesters I can take 2 courses each, so that'll be 4 courses a year. In the winters, I don't need to be out socializing as much, and I just feel mentally more ready to be in school mode, to be learning. So this summer, that was also a lesson, right? Like I fucked up, but I also didn't. Like it gave me the chance to realize, like, okay, math is not what I want to be doing in the summer, so I'm gonna stick it out. It's okay, I'll do both math and dance this summer. And I'm also doing other stuff, like a lot of hiking, a lot of stuff I want to do, a lot of stuff. I'm not talking about all of it. It's a lot of goals I have this summer. But I know next year I'm going to split it. So the winter and spring semesters, I can do 4 courses in the winter months. And then next summer, I'll just focus completely on dance. Just dancing every day, taking dance classes, just having fun with life in the summer. So that's another lesson. So it's really, it's interesting, like how much I've optimized my life recently. Just getting down, like all these little things that used to trouble me: homework, weight loss, like how to eat, stretching, right? Like how to find time in the day for stretching. All these things I've really optimized and locked in as systems in my life, which is actually another interesting parallel to chess, because I realized in chess, when I started taking lessons from grandmasters, I realized the one and only difference between me and them, or like any beginner in chess and them, was not really the talent. It was how systematic they were, which could be considered talent in itself. Because these guys, like how systematic they were in their training, it's phenomenal. Like they don't leave things up to chance. Like that was the single most like poignant thing that really stuck out to me when I took those lessons with grandmasters, and I'm so glad that I did. I only took a few sessions, but that was enough to pick their minds, ask questions about how they train, and then the payoff wasn't just in the chess world, but it taught me that I have to be this systematic in other things in life. If anything I want to take on, that is the real differentiator between the people who succeed in anything and the people who don't. Also gave me an understanding of how malleable, how plastic we are, right? The neuroplasticity is there. Like I used to think, if I suck at math, then I suck at math. If I suck at something, I won't get better at it, right? Kind of thing, like don't do it. But I've been beating that. Like I don't know to what extent it's possible to be plastic in learning new things and getting good at them. But think about the mill riding. Like I was a fish out of water, a fish trying to climb a tree, and I still am, and I probably still always will be. But it's still interesting that how good I've gotten. Like when I compare myself to a guy who quit after 1 year at my current job, he was a millwright there for 1 year as an apprentice, and me 9 months in now, I would say I am just as good as he was when he left after 1 year, and I've been here 9 months. I can think of a couple of areas maybe where he was better, like his welding was better than mine, and he had more experience with cars, so like fixing cars and stuff. So like when he used forklifts and stuff, he knew what was going on, and I kind of do now too. But honestly, and then I'm kind of better now at certain things than he was. Like when it comes to removing gearboxes and stuff, like he didn't know what the fuck he was doing, but I can reliably do these things. Like there are tasks that I get assigned now on a regular basis that I can do by myself without anyone there to shadow. So I'm pretty competent now. Like it's amazing after 9 months. Like, or even just new jobs they gave me. Like today they were like, hey, go install these door hinges. Or like the other time was like, go install this doorknob or something, like, or this door retractor in the lunchroom. Like doors, like who I've never done that before, but now they give me a new task like that, and I can read the fucking paper or whatever, figure shit out, just and go get it done. Like I don't have that as much of a fear of the unknown anymore. Pretty competent. So this was me being a fish out of water completely, and yet I've still managed to get this good. And I always keep coming back to the words that another apprentice told me back in my foundations program. He told me that because I sucked so much when I did that 6-month foundations program as a millwright, and that guy told me, Jas, he said, if you do something long enough, eventually you'll get good at it, right? Like it's unreasonable to suck if you've been doing something for 10 years, right? And that's kind of, those words stuck with me, and I keep thinking about that. I keep coming back to that. So whether it's the millwrighting, like I put in my 9 months and I am a lot better than I used to be, right? Like imagine me after 4 years of doing this. As much as I suck at this shit, as much as it doesn't come naturally to me, I will be pretty fucking good, right? Or the math that I'm doing, like the way I was able to follow along in the lecture, and I knew what was going on. I was able to set up the equations. Like, yes, I was the dumbest person in the class up till this far, but now I feel like maybe that's not the case. When I'm listening to the other students' questions in class and stuff, it's like, wow, doing the homework really made a difference, and I can see myself maybe being at the middle of the class next math class. Or what if I retake this math class to pass it next time? Then I'll probably be at the top of the class, right? So how plastic am I? Really makes me wonder, you know. It's some really great realizations there. I'm sorry for rambling, but at some point in this video I just thought, okay, you guys aren't gonna follow anyways, so might as well talk for myself. Yeah, get my own thoughts in order. Thanks, guys.